Gold digger humiliates a waiter, unaware he was a millionaire restaurateur. Jason Reed adjusted his plain white button-down shirt in the cramped employee bathroom mirror, tucking a loose strand of his usually perfectly styled hair behind his ear. The shirt was 2 sizes too large, intentionally so, and the black polyester pants hung awkwardly on his athletic frame. He'd swapped his custom Italian leather shoes for scuff service sneakers bought at a discount store. His Rolex was locked safely in the glove compartment of his Ferrari, parked 3 blocks away. Jake Wilson, he practiced, trying out the unfamiliar name on his tongue. Server at Reedstone Kitchens, Manhattan location. First week on the job. The bathroom doors swung open, and a young line cook rushed in, then stopped abruptly. Sorry, man. Didn't know anyone was in here. The cook glanced at Jason's reflection. You the new guy? Jason nodded, relaxing his posture to appear less commanding. Jake. Started yesterday. Good luck out there. Kyle's on a warpath today. Quarterly numbers came in. The cook disappeared into a stall. Jason slipped out, a small notebook tucked into his back pocket. Quarterly numbers. That was precisely why he was here. When Jason had launched Reedstone Kitchens 8 years ago, he'd been a hands-on owner, working the line alongside his staff, greeting every customer, and obsessing over each detail. Success had changed that. 12 locations across 3 states, a cookbook deal, and features in every major food publication had drawn him away from the daily operations. He'd become the face rather than the backbone. Then the reports started coming in. The Manhattan flagship, his original restaurant, was hemorrhaging customers. Online reviews mentioned declining service, inconsistent food quality, and an atmosphere that felt corporate and soulless. The words had stung, but what hurt more was that he hadn't noticed the deterioration himself. He'd been too busy expanding, too focused on the future to mind the foundation. His executive team had suggested consultants, mystery shoppers, or a management overhaul. Jason had a different idea. 3 days ago, he'd called the Manhattan location's manager, Kyle Peterson, and introduced himself as Jake Wilson, an out-of-work server with previous fine dining experience. Kyle had hired him on the spot. No reference check, no trial shift. Red flag number 1. Now, on his 3rd evening on the job, Jason was gathering evidence of everything wrong with the restaurant he'd built with his own hands. The dining room was half full, unusual for a Thursday night that should have been packed. Jason noted how the host seated parties, clustering them in one section while leaving another server's area empty. He watched Kyle emerge from his office only to chat with attractive female customers, ignoring service issues at other tables. Jake, a server named Melissa called in a hushed voice. Table 12 is yours. 4 top. And heads up, Kyle wants you to take all the walk-ins tonight. Why's that? Melissa's eyes darted around nervously. Because walk-ins don't make reservations. They don't get survey emails. If service is slow, there's no record. She squeezed his shoulder. Just try not to mess up too visibly. He's looking for someone to blame for last month's numbers. Jason thanked her and headed toward table 12, jotting quick notes when no one was looking. Staff covering for poor management. Deliberate manipulation of customer feedback system. Morale obviously low. The kitchen was equally revealing. Food sat under heat lamps far longer than Jason's strict 7-minute maximum. The sous chef was cutting corners on his signature dishes, pre-making components that should be cooked to order, skimping on the imported ingredients that had made Reedstone famous. Order for table 23 is late, Jason mentioned to the expo. Yeah, well, add it to the list. The expo gestured to a row of tickets. Kyle cut our line cook staff by 2 positions last month. Said we needed to streamline operations. By 9 o'clock, Jason had filled 3 pages with observations. Understaffing. Food waste. Inventory discrepancies. But the most troubling pattern was the culture. His restaurant, once known for its warm, familial atmosphere, had become a minefield of tension, blame, and fear. He was gathering silverware for a reset when the front doors burst open. Even without looking up, Jason felt the atmosphere in the dining room shift, like air pressure dropping before a storm. A woman's voice, loud, deliberate, designed to turn heads, cut through the ambient restaurant noise. "Well, this place has certainly gone downhill since my last visit." Jason turned to see a stunning woman in her early 30s, draped in a fitted black dress that probably cost more than what his servers made in a month. Diamond earrings caught the light as she tossed her honey blonde hair over one shoulder, scanning the room with predatory eyes. Her red-soled stilettos clicked impatiently on the hardwood floor. The host rushed forward. "Ms. Blake, we weren't expecting you tonight." "Clearly." She gestured dismissively at the dining room. "Look at this place. Half empty on a Thursday? Pathetic." Jason watched as Kyle emerged from his office like a moth drawn to flame, his entire demeanor transforming. "Tiffany! What a pleasure!" Kyle took her hand, his smile obsequious. "Your usual table is occupied, but I'll have them moved immediately." "Don't bother." She waved a manicured hand. "I'm not staying long. Just meeting someone for drinks." Her gaze landed on Jason, and something in her expression changed, a predatory gleam entering her eyes as she assessed his ill-fitting clothes and deliberately unassuming stance. "You," she called, snapping her fingers. "Waiter. What's your name?" Jason stepped forward, feeling the eyes of every staff member on him. He knew instantly that this woman, whoever she was about to become central to his investigation. "Jake," he answered simply. "How can I help you, ma'am?" Tiffany Blake's red lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You can start by bringing me a proper glass of champagne. And do try not to trip over those enormous feet on your way to the bar." Kyle laughed sycophantically. "Jake's new. I'll personally ensure your drinks are perfect, Tiffany." As they walked away, Jason heard Tiffany's stage whisper. "Where do you find these people? He looks like he shops at a garage sale." Jason made another note in his book, this one underlined twice. Management prioritizes certain customers at expense of staff dignity and professional standards. What had started as a mission to save his restaurant was revealing something far more insidious. Jason slipped the notebook back into his pocket, a plan already forming in his mind. The next few days would reveal exactly how deep the rot had spread, and who would be left standing when he finally revealed his true identity. Tiffany Blake didn't merely enter rooms, she invaded them. As she settled at the corner table Kyle had hastily cleared for her, she surveyed the restaurant like a general assessing conquered territory. Her Birkin bag occupied its own chair beside her, as if even her accessories deserved special treatment. "Moat? How pedestrian," she sighed, examining the champagne list. "Don't you have any Krug Grande Cuvée? It's all Charles drinks these days." Kyle's face tightened. "I'll check our reserve cellar, Ms. Blake." "Do that. And send that new waiter over." "What was his name? Jack? Jim? Jake," Kyle corrected. "Whatever. He looks entertaining." From across the dining room, Jason watched the exchange while polishing glassware. In his 20 years in the restaurant industry, he'd encountered plenty of difficult customers, but something about Tiffany Blake seemed calculated rather than merely entitled. He approached her table with deliberate humility. "Ms. Blake, how may I help you?" Tiffany looked up from her phone, assessing him with undisguised amusement. "Oh good, Jake the waiter. Tell me, how long have you been in the service industry?" "A few years," Jason replied, keeping his cover story vague. She laughed, a tinkling sound designed to be heard by nearby tables. "I can tell. Your posture screams community college dropout. Stand up straight, for heaven's sake. You're not delivering pizzas." A couple at the adjacent table exchanged uncomfortable glances. Jason noted their reaction, genuine customers disturbed by the display. "I apologize if my service isn't meeting your standards," he said evenly. "Apology not accepted," Tiffany replied, leaning back to give him a full appraisal. "Those shoes are atrocious. Are those from Walmart? And that haircut, did you do it yourself with kitchen scissors?" Jason maintained his composure. "Is there something specific you'd like to order, ma'am?" Yes. A waiter with a sense of style. She turned to an older woman at the next table who was clearly trying not to listen. Don't you agree? The staff here used to be so presentable. The woman murmured something noncommittal and returned to her meal. No one appreciates quality anymore. Tiffany sighed dramatically. She opened her compact mirror, reapplied her lipstick, then blotted it on a napkin. Here, Jake. This is probably the most expensive thing you'll ever touch. Consider it your tip. She held out the lipstick-stained napkin. Several diners were now openly watching. Jason took it without comment, slipping it into his pocket alongside his notebook. Evidence. Kyle returned with a bottle not on their regular menu. Found this in our private stock, Ms. Blake. Finally, some decent service. She gestured dismissively at Jason. You can go now. Shoo. As Jason walked away, he heard her say loudly. These charity cases they hire these days. Probably an ex-con or something. The rest of the evening was an education in the Tiffany Blake experience. She stayed for nearly 3 hours, nursing 2 glasses of champagne and ordering nothing else. Her date, a silver-haired man in his 60s with a wedding band tan line, never showed. Yet Kyle checked on her every 15 minutes, comped her drinks, and ensured she was the center of attention. Meanwhile, Jason quietly interviewed the staff during breaks. Oh, Tiffany's here at least twice a week, Melissa told him in the service alley. Always with different men, always making a scene. And Kyle allows it? Melissa lowered her voice. Are you kidding? He encourages it. The men she brings drop thousands on wine alone. One guy bought champagne for the entire restaurant just to impress her. Has she always been this way? Worse lately. There was a rumor her last sugar daddy dumped her for someone younger. Now she's extra vicious to staff. Makes herself feel powerful, I guess. The bartender, Diego, had more insights. I've seen her type before. She uses this place as her hunting ground. Dates wealthy guys until their money or patience runs out, then finds the next one. Cal lets her get away because those men are big spenders. No one stands up to her? Diego snorted. Marco did, last month. After she made comments about his accent. Know what happened? Cal wrote him up for guest relations issues and cut his shifts. Marco quit last week. By closing time, Jason had a clear picture. Tiffany Blake wasn't just a rude customer, she was a symptom of the disease infecting his restaurant. Kyle had created an environment where money trumped dignity, where staff were expendable, and where the wrong kind of customer was king. As Jason helped close the restaurant, Tiffany finally stood to leave. She'd been texting aggressively for an hour, clearly annoyed her date had stood her up. I'll need a car, she announced to no one in particular. Kyle jumped to attention. I'll call you our service, Ms. Blake. Make sure it's the good one. Not those horrible little economy cars. While Kyle made the arrangements, Tiffany approached Jason, who was clearing a nearby table. You know, she said, her voice slightly slurred from champagne. Men like you should wear name tags. Otherwise, you're basically invisible. Jason looked directly into her eyes. For just a moment, he let his carefully constructed facade slip. I see you very clearly, Ms. Blake. Something in his tone made her blink in confusion. Before she could respond, Kyle returned. Your car will be here in 3 minutes, Ms. Blake. The moment passed. Tiffany's mask of contempt returned as she collected her bag. Tomorrow night will be much more interesting. I'm bringing Edward Chambers. Kyle's eyes widened. The real estate developer? Wonderful! Make sure we get the corner booth. And don't put this one anywhere near us, she added, jerking her head toward Jason. Unless you want Edward's $15,000 watch to be served with fingerprints all over it. As Tiffany clicked her way toward the exit, Jason made his final notes of the evening. Target customer, appearance of wealth over character. Management enables toxic behavior for profit. Staff morale deteriorating through systematic abuse. He underlined one last observation. Tiffany Blake returning tomorrow with new date. Opportunity to document full extent of dysfunctional culture. Jason couldn't have planned a better setup if he'd tried. Tomorrow night would indeed be interesting, but not for the reasons Tiffany Blake expected. Jason arrived for his shift the next day 2 hours early. He wanted to observe the restaurant's operations during prep time, a critical period he hadn't yet evaluated. Using the excuse of needing extra training, he slipped into the kitchen while the morning staff prepared for service. What he saw made his stomach turn. In the walk-in refrigerator, a cook was redating packages of seafood, pushing expiration dates forward by 2 days. When Jason asked about it casually, the cook shrugged. "Kyle's orders. Says we waste too much product throwing things out on time. Just don't serve it to anyone who looks like a health inspector." At the bar, Diego was watering down top-shelf liquor bottles, adding cheap vodka to Grey Goose and generic tequila to Patron. "Only for well drinks," Diego explained when he caught Jason watching. "House policy. They're paying for the mixer anyway, right?" Jason made mental note number 27 of the day: potential health code violations. Fraudulent alcohol service. Staff uncomfortable but compliant. Near the host stand, he discovered another troubling practice. A young hostess was entering false reservation names into the system. Johnson, party of 4, and Miller, party of 6, for peak dining hours. "It's so we can tell walk-ins we're fully booked, then find them a table if they look like big spenders," she explained. "Kyle calls it curating the clientele." By the time the dinner service began, Jason had documented enough violations to shut down the restaurant. But he wasn't looking to destroy what he'd built. He wanted to understand how things had gone so wrong, and who was responsible. Kyle arrived at 4, immediately disappearing into his office with the head chef. Jason positioned himself near the partly open door, pretending to fold napkins. "The investor dinner is confirmed for tomorrow night," Kyle was saying. "I've told the staff it's just routine, but Reed's executive team will be here." "What about the inventory discrepancies?" the chef asked. "If they audit us, I've got it covered. We'll blame it on that new guy, Jake. Say he's been mishandling deliveries." Jason stiffened. So he was already being set up as the fall guy. "Is Reed himself coming?" the chef asked. Kyle laughed. "Are you kidding? That guy hasn't set foot in this place in years. Too busy being a celebrity chef to care about his flagship. Trust me, as long as the numbers look good on paper, the big boss couldn't care less." The words stung more than Jason expected. Was that how his staff viewed him? As an absentee owner who cared only about profits? The evening shifted into high gear as customers began arriving. Jason observed Kyle's management style in full swing, charming to wealthy patrons, dismissive of others, alternately flirtatious and dictatorial with staff. When a family complained about undercooked chicken, Kyle comped their meal but later berated the server in front of everyone. "That's coming out of your tips," he snapped. "Next time, sell them on something else." In the kitchen, corners were cut with alarming efficiency. Jason's signature dishes, ones that had earned the restaurant its reputation, were simplified beyond recognition. House-made components were replaced with store-bought alternatives. Premium ingredients were stretched with fillers. "This isn't how these dishes are supposed to be prepared," Jason commented to the line cook. "Yeah, well, this is how they are prepared now," the cook replied. "Original recipes cost too much and take too long. Management says customers can't tell the difference anyway." But the most disturbing revelation came in a conversation with Melissa during her break. She'd been with the restaurant for 5 years, one of the few remaining staff from Jason's hands-on days. "This place used to feel like family," she said, eyes distant with nostalgia. "The original owner, Mr. Reed, knew everyone's name. He'd jump on the line if we got slammed, help servers if we were short-staffed. He cared about the food, the experience, everything." "What happened?" Jason asked, careful to keep his voice neutral. "Success, I guess. He expanded, got famous, moved on. Then Kyle took over, and everything became about cutting costs and serving influencers like Tiffany Blake." She sighed. "Now it's just a job, and not even a good one." Jason swallowed his guilt. Why don't people complain to upper management? Melissa's laugh was hollow. Kyle reads all emails before they're forwarded. Anyone who's tried got their hours cut or found themselves scheduled for dead shifts. We're all just trying to survive until something better comes along. As the night progressed, Jason became increasingly uncomfortable with his role in this deterioration. He'd created something beautiful, then abandoned it to people who saw only dollar signs where he'd seen passion and craft. The dinner rush was winding down when the front door opened, and Tiffany Blake swept in, this time on the arm of an older gentleman in a bespoke suit. Edward Chambers, presumably, the real estate developer she'd mentioned. Kyle practically ran to greet them. Ms. Blake! Mr. Chambers! Your table is ready. Jason watched as they were escorted to the best spot in the house, a corner booth he'd specifically designed for quiet conversation and optimal viewing of both the kitchen and the New York skyline. Other parties who had been waiting were ignored. Jake! Kyle snapped his fingers. Water service for Ms. Blake's table. Now. As Jason approached with the water pitcher, he overheard Tiffany's conversation. Absolutely dreadful service last time, she was saying. But I keep coming back because it used to be the place to be seen. The owner was some up-and-coming chef who got lucky. Read something. Jason Reed, Edward corrected. Talented guy, actually. Met him at a charity event. Shame what's happened to this location. Tiffany waved dismissively. Whatever. The point is, the staff here is entertainment in itself. Especially this one. She nodded toward Jason as he poured water. Watch this. Jason braced himself. The evening was about to take a turn, and he had front-row seats to the corruption of his own creation. Tomorrow night couldn't come soon enough. Tell me, Jake. Tiffany's voice carried deliberately through the dining room. Did you actually graduate high school, or did you just decide that carrying plates was your life's calling? Jason stood beside their table, order pad in hand, aware that several nearby diners had paused their conversations. Edward Chambers looked mildly uncomfortable but said nothing to discourage her. I've had various careers, ma'am, Jason replied evenly. Would you like to hear about the specials tonight? Oh, he speaks. Tiffany turned to Edward with exaggerated surprise. And here I thought they just hired him for his strong back and weak mind. Edward chuckled, though his eyes darted to the surrounding tables. Tiffany, perhaps we should order. In a minute, Eddie. I'm just getting to know the help. She turned back to Jason, eyes narrowing. Where are you from? That accent isn't local. Colorado originally, Jason answered, incorporating details from his actual background. Colorado! Tiffany exclaimed. That explains the provincial manner. Tell me, were your parents ski instructors or just regular mountain people? A woman at a nearby table set down her fork with a deliberate clink. Her companion whispered something, but she shook her head. My parents were entrepreneurs, Jason said simply, which was true. His father had built a successful local restaurant chain before passing away, the inspiration for Jason's own career path. Entrepreneurs, Tiffany repeated, making air quotes. That's what people call themselves when they run a roadside stand selling dream catchers to tourists, right? Edward cleared his throat. The wine list, please. Jason handed him the leather-bound wine menu. As Edward studied it, Tiffany continued her performance. Your hands are surprisingly clean for someone in your position, she observed loudly. Let me guess, you're hoping to move up to bartending? Maybe meet a rich divorcee who'll take pity on you. I take pride in my appearance regardless of my position, Jason replied, maintaining his composure while making mental notes about her escalating behavior. Tiffany's eyes flashed with annoyance at his unflappable demeanor. She'd clearly expected him to become flustered. Edward is developing a luxury high-rise just 2 blocks from here, she said, changing tactics. Condos starting at $8 million. I doubt you'd even qualify to be the doorman. It sounds impressive, Jason said. Congratulations on your project, sir. Edward nodded, seeming increasingly uncomfortable with Tiffany's display. Thank you. We're breaking ground next month. Edward owns half of Manhattan. Tiffany interjected. Men like him make this city run. Men like you just run around in it. She laughed at her own joke. Jason noticed Kyle hovering nearby, clearly monitoring the interaction but making no move to intervene. Edward selected an expensive Bordeaux. As Jason turned to retrieve it, Tiffany made a show of inspecting his back. "Oh my God, Eddie, look at his pants. They don't even fit properly. Is the restaurant so cheap they can't provide proper uniforms?" The dining room had grown quieter. Even the business dinner in the corner had stopped discussing their merger to observe the uncomfortable scene. When Jason returned with the wine, Tiffany's attack continued. She questioned his ability to operate a corkscrew. As he poured, she narrated each movement as if teaching a child. "Careful now. That bottle costs more than you make in a week. Don't drip on Mr. Chambers' Brioni suit, it costs more than your car. Assuming he has a car," Edward added, finally participating in her game. "Maybe he takes the subway with the rest of the common folk." Tiffany's eyes lit up at Edward's contribution. "Hear that, Jake? Eddie knows quality. His watch collection alone is worth more than you'll earn in your lifetime." Edward displayed his timepiece, a limited edition Patek Philippe. "This one's $250,000. I have 12 more at home." Jason admired it with genuine appreciation. "Beautiful craftsmanship. The Grande Complication model, isn't it?" Edward blinked, surprised at his knowledge. "Yes, actually. He probably read that in a magazine while waiting at the free clinic." Tiffany interjected quickly. "Let's order, Eddie. I'm starving." As Jason took their order, Tiffany dissected each of his movements. She mimicked his accent, questioned his intelligence when he repeated their complex modifications, and even criticized how he held his pen. The final straw came when she, accidentally, knocked her water glass over, splashing Jason's pants. "Oops," she said without a hint of remorse. "Look at that, now you'll have to walk around wet all night. Although, maybe that's an improvement to your appearance." A few tables away, an elderly woman stood up abruptly. "Young lady," she called across the restaurant. "Your behavior is appalling." Tiffany's head whipped around. "Excuse me? You heard me," the woman said. "I've been coming to this restaurant for years, and I've never seen such disrespect." "Mind your own business," Tiffany snapped. "Civility is everyone's business," the woman replied. "Come along, Henry. We'll finish our meal elsewhere." She and her companion placed their napkins on the table and walked out. Several other diners murmured in agreement. One man stopped to leave an extra large tip on his way out, saying to Jason, "No one should be treated that way." Tiffany was momentarily stunned but quickly recovered. "Whatever. This place is going downhill anyway. The original owner would be ashamed of what it's become." The irony of her statement wasn't lost on Jason. He had heard enough, more than enough, to understand just how toxic his restaurant's culture had become. "Will there be anything else?" he asked, maintaining his professional demeanor. Tiffany looked him directly in the eyes, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper that nonetheless carried through the now quiet dining room. "Men like you are invisible in this city. You exist to serve people like us. Remember that." Jason held her gaze for a long moment. "I assure you, Ms. Blake, I see everything very clearly. And tomorrow, everyone else will too." Something in his tone made her falter, but she quickly dismissed it with a toss of her hair. "Whatever. Just bring our food when it's ready. And try not to breathe on it too much." As Jason walked away, he passed Kyle, who whispered harshly, "Don't forget who pays your salary. Make them happy, or you're done here." Jason nodded silently. In less than 24 hours, this charade would end. The investor dinner tomorrow night would be his moment of truth, and a reckoning for everyone involved. Tiffany Blake had no idea who she'd been mocking. But she was about to find out. The private dining room buzzed with nervous energy. Staff members straightened their uniforms, polished already gleaming glassware, and exchanged theories about the evening ahead. "I heard corporate is shutting us down," whispered one server. "No way," countered another. "They're announcing a renovation." That's why they want all staff here. Jason, still in his Jake disguise, remained quiet as he helped set up. He'd arrived early to place hidden recording devices around the room, not for legal purposes, but to ensure he captured every reaction to what was about to unfold. Kyle burst through the doors, more agitated than usual. Listen up! The regional director is bringing Mr. Reed's executive team here tonight. This is make or break for all of us. He glared at the assembled staff. Anyone who embarrasses me will be fired on the spot. Understood? Everyone nodded. No one questioned why a routine investor dinner required such threats. At precisely 7 o'clock, the first guests arrived. They weren't executives, as the staff expected, but regular customers, specifically, the ones who had witnessed Tiffany's behavior over the past few days. What are they doing here? Kyle hissed at the hostess. I don't know, she stammered. They all had confirmed reservations for the private room. Next came the restaurant's vendors, the local farmers, fishmongers, and artisans who provided the premium ingredients that had made Reedstone kitchens famous. Several looked around in confusion, clearly not regular attendees of corporate functions. By 7:30, the room was filled with an unusual mix: staff members, regular customers, suppliers, and finally, a group of sharp-suited executives from Reedstone's corporate office. Among the last to enter was Tiffany Blake, wearing a designer dress that left little to the imagination. She made a beeline for the bar, clearly assuming she'd been invited due to her status as a VIP customer. Where's Edward? Kyle asked nervously. Couldn't make it, Tiffany replied, scanning the room for other wealthy prospects. But I never miss a networking opportunity. When is Reed's team arriving? Kyle checked his watch. Any minute, the regional director said. The room fell silent as the door opened again. In walked Patricia Winters, Reedstone's formidable regional director. Her expression was unreadable as she stepped to the center of the room. Thank you all for coming, she began. This isn't a typical investor dinner. Tonight is about the future of this location, our flagship restaurant and the birthplace of the Reedstone brand. Kyle moved to stand beside her, a proprietary smile on his face. Patricia stepped away subtly. Many of you have noticed changes in this restaurant over the past year, she continued. Not all of them positive. Kyle's smile faltered. The founder of Reedstone Kitchens has always believed that a restaurant is more than just food and profit. It's about community, integrity, and respect. Patricia's gaze swept the room. Values that seem to have been forgotten here. The staff exchanged nervous glances. Something unexpected was happening. Rather than rely on reports and reviews, Mr. Reed wanted to experience this location as customers do. To understand what was really happening in the restaurant he built with his own hands. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Kyle's face had gone pale. So, Patricia continued, he came here himself, undercover, to work alongside you for the past 3 days. All eyes darted around the room, searching for a hidden executive. I'd like to introduce, or rather reintroduce, the founder and CEO of Reedstone Kitchens, Mr. Jason Reed. The room collectively held its breath as Jason stepped forward, removing the cheap service glasses he'd been wearing as part of his disguise. He ran a hand through his hair, restoring it to its usual style. Even in the ill-fitting uniform, his posture and presence transformed, suddenly unmistakable. In the stunned silence, he reached inside his waiter's vest and pulled out a perfectly tailored suit jacket, which Patricia handed him. As he slipped it on over his uniform shirt, the transformation was complete. Kyle's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for water. Tiffany, who had been scrolling through her phone, looked up at the commotion. The color drained from her face as recognition dawned. Thank you, Patricia, Jason said, his voice no longer that of a subservient waiter but resonant with authority. For those who don't know me, I'm Jason Reed. I founded this restaurant 12 years ago with a simple philosophy: exceptional food served with dignity in an atmosphere of mutual respect. He pulled out his notebook. For the past 3 days, I've experienced this restaurant as Jake Wilson, a new server. What I've witnessed is nothing short of the systematic destruction of everything Reedstone stands for. Jason turned to face Kyle directly. I've documented health code violations, inventory fraud, staff intimidation, and a toxic culture that prioritizes flash over substance. Kyle stepped back, colliding with the table. Mr. Reed, I can explain. Save it. Jason cut him off. The numbers tell part of the story, but they don't capture the human cost. The dedicated staff members working in fear. The quality producers whose premium ingredients never make it to the plate. The customers treated like wallets rather than guests. He turned to address the entire room. To my staff, I apologize for my absence. I believed I could trust others to maintain the standards I established, and in that I failed you. Several servers, including Melissa, had tears in their eyes. To our suppliers, I promise that from today forward, your exceptional products will be treated with the respect they deserve. The fishmonger nodded appreciatively. To our loyal customers, thank you for calling out behavior that violated our values. Your willingness to stand up for our staff gives me hope that what we built here isn't entirely lost. Finally, Jason's gaze landed on Tiffany, who was edging toward the door. And Ms. Blake, he said, his voice level but firm. You were right about one thing. The original owner would indeed be ashamed of what this restaurant has become, a place where someone like you could publicly humiliate staff members without consequence. Tiffany froze, her face flushing crimson as guests turned to stare at her. The elderly woman who had left in protest the previous night gave a small, satisfied nod. Men like me are not invisible, Ms. Blake. Jason continued. We see everything, including who deserves a place in the community we're rebuilding here. The silence in the room was absolute. Kyle looked as though he might faint. And Tiffany Blake, for perhaps the first time in her adult life, was utterly speechless. Kyle Peterson, your employment with Reedstone Kitchens is terminated, effective immediately. Jason announced, his voice firm but not unkind. Patricia will escort you to collect your personal belongings. The room remained silent as Kyle, ashen-faced, followed Patricia toward the office. He attempted one last defense. Mr. Reed, please, I was just trying to maximize profits. The numbers were good. Ask corporate. The numbers were falsified, Jason replied. And profits at the expense of integrity aren't profits worth having. As Kyle disappeared down the hallway, Jason turned to address the staff. I know this is shocking. Change always is. But I promise you this, Reedstone is returning to its roots, starting tonight. Tiffany, who had been frozen in place by the unexpected turn of events, suddenly found her voice. This is ridiculous. You can't possibly blame me for your management problems. All eyes turned to her. Jason approached slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. Ms. Blake, you weren't the disease, you were a symptom. But your behavior was inexcusable by any standard. He kept his tone measured. For 3 days, I watched you deliberately humiliate staff members who were doing their best to serve you. It was just a bit of fun. She protested, looking around for support and finding none. Everyone knows restaurant staff expect difficult customers. It's part of the job. The elderly woman who had stood up to Tiffany the previous night stepped forward. Young lady, respect is not optional in civilized society. Indeed, Jason agreed. Which is why, Ms. Blake, you are no longer welcome at any Reedstone location. Tiffany's jaw dropped. You can't ban me. Do you know who I am? Who my connections are? I know exactly who you are, Jason replied. Someone who believes wealth, or proximity to it, grants immunity from basic human decency. It doesn't. He turned to a security guard standing by the door. Please ensure Ms. Blake is escorted out. As the reality of the situation sank in, Tiffany's composure crumbled. This is discrimination. I'll sue. On what grounds? Jason asked calmly. That we refuse to serve customers who abuse our staff? My lawyers would welcome that precedent. As the security guard approached, Tiffany grabbed her designer purse, her movements jerky with rage. You'll regret this. I know everyone who matters in this city. And now they'll all know you, Jason replied. Not as a socialite, but as someone who treats other humans as props for your entertainment. A server whom Tiffany had reduced to tears the previous week stepped forward, holding the door open with exaggerated courtesy. Several staff members broke into spontaneous applause as Tiffany stormed out, her high heels stabbing the floor with each furious step. With the dramatic exits complete, Jason returned to the center of the room. Now to the work ahead. This restaurant was built on 3 principles: exceptional ingredients, prepared with skill and care, served in an atmosphere of mutual respect. We're returning to those foundations immediately. Over the next hour, Jason outlined his vision for the restaurant's rebirth. The sous chef, David, who had been quietly maintaining standards despite Kyle's cost-cutting, was promoted to executive chef. Melissa became the new front-of-house manager. The staff who had endured Kyle's regime received substantial raises and back pay for documented unpaid overtime. Most importantly, Jason announced he would be personally overseeing the restaurant for the next 3 months. I lost touch with what made this place special, he admitted. That won't happen again. After the formal announcements, Jason moved through the room, speaking individually with staff members, suppliers, and regular customers. He learned names, stories, and concerns that had gone unheard for too long. Near the end of the evening, he found himself face to face with Edward Chambers, who had arrived late and witnessed the aftermath. Quite a show, Reed, the developer said, extending his hand. I missed the fireworks, but I gather Tiffany got what was coming to her. Jason shook his hand but didn't smile. Mr. Chambers, you witnessed her behavior last night and chose to encourage it. That makes you complicit. Edward blinked in surprise. It was just dinner conversation. No, Jason corrected him. It was cruelty disguised as entertainment, and you participated. I'd appreciate it if you dined elsewhere in the future. For a moment, Edward looked like he might argue. Then, seeing the resolve in Jason's expression, he simply nodded and walked out. As the gathering wound down, Jason found himself alone with Melissa in the restaurant's small garden patio. Snow was falling gently on Manhattan, the flakes glowing in the light from the restaurant windows. Will it work? She asked. Can we really go back to what made this place special? Jason considered the question. Not back. Forward. With the original values but new energy. He brushed snow from a potted herb plant, time that had managed to survive neglect. Places are like these plants. They need constant attention, not just when it's convenient. You could have fired all of us, Melissa said. Started fresh. The problem was never the staff, Jason replied. It was leadership that lost its way. He looked through the window at the team inside, already rearranging tables to the original, more spacious layout. Besides, you all survived Kyle and Tiffany. That shows remarkable resilience. Melissa laughed, a genuine sound that had been rare in the restaurant for too long. Speaking of Tiffany, I'd pay good money to see her face when she realizes who you really are. Worth every minute of her abuse. Jason smiled. Justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about restoration, giving people back what was taken from them. Pride in their work. Dignity in their service. A text message appeared on his phone, from Patricia. Kyle had been escorted out, and his company credit cards and keys had been confiscated. One chapter ended, another beginning. Tomorrow, they would reopen with a renewed commitment to the vision that had made Reedstone special in the first place. The menu would be reprinted, the original recipes restored, the staff retrained in the art of genuine hospitality. As for Tiffany Blake, her social media was already ablaze with a different version of events, casting herself as the victim of an unreasonable restaurant owner. But without Kyle to enable her, without access to any Reedstone location to perform for an audience, her power was diminished. Some lessons come at a high price, Jason reflected. His had cost 3 years of his restaurant's reputation. Tiffany's had cost only her pride. In the world of fine dining, as in life, karma was indeed best served fresh, with a side of reality.